Paige, I think you're trying to get my blood pressure up this morning, hun. For those of you who have watched me for a while, you know my feelings on HRS. But for those of you who don't, I don't like it. And that is because their data is so wrong, their information is so wrong, and they're more worried about being right than the care of rabbits. And let me explain. So when first created, the HRS was on par with most AG studies. It followed the data and information of, like peer-reviewed studies. The problem was in the 90s, they decided that they were going to house guinea pigs and rabbits together. And when they did that, they combined the care of both of those animals. So no wire bottom flooring, salads for the animals to eat, lower protein, higher wet vegetables. That on top of the fact that guinea pigs can give rabbits a bunch of different diseases killed a bunch of rabbits. So once they realized the error of housing guinea pigs and rabbits together, they did the right thing and separated them again. But they continued to push guinea pig care for rabbits. Rabbits do not have the same digestive systems and the same enzymes as guinea pigs do. They're more prone to things like GI stasis and diarrhea and other things that cause death because of gaseous and wet vegetables, especially in the mass amount HRS pushes. Now, I could go on with other things I don't like about HRS. I can make an entire video series on it. I can go ham on it because there is so much misinformation. But the biggest problem I have with HRS is it's kind of like PETA. It appeals to your emotions and your feelings about how things should be done to get you to do what they want. Basically, they think that the people who follow them are too dumb to look up their own studies and basically say, hey, you're horrible people if you do anything other than what we say, and we're right. So all of the rabbits in my barn can definitely be used for meat, and I will eat them. With that being said, if I wasn't so focused on show, I definitely would not be breeding a lot of the breeds I have. I would probably just be down to 2 breeds, Californians and silver foxes. But those are the 2 breeds I would choose to keep on the homestead because of their litter sizes and how fast they grow out if I was specifically just looking for meat. I think I'm annoying them, to be honest. We talk daily and I'm constantly asking questions about the most minute of things. Like, I'm knowledgeable about rabbits, but they are knowledgeable about rabbits and have many, many more years of experience compared to me. Like with the whole Stormy situation between her and Domino, that's where I was getting all of my stuff when I had questions and I was saying, hey, what's wrong with this and what should I do about this? That's a part of being a part of this community, finding friends and mentors. Because the thing is you don't necessarily need to agree with everything they have to say. You can always take bits and pieces of what they say and then take what you want and then store the rest away. It's how you build a toolbox. With that being said, they're on point with their knowledge. And they are completely right, and rabbits don't need hay. If you have a complete pellet, that is all a rabbit needs. But also, if you look at the very first ingredient of a good complete pellet, the very first or second ingredient is going to be an alfalfa hay byproduct or alfalfa. So the extra hay is just enrichment, which isn't necessarily needed. But you'll hear me say something similar along the lines of XYZ isn't needed, however, we still use it. So for instance, hay, enrichment items, rest mats. All of those things aren't needed, but if it improves the quality for life and it's within reason for those rabbits, we can definitely use them. We were just talking about enrichment toys in the form of toilet paper tubes stuffed with hay. So yeah, I absolutely enjoy that person and their content, and they have a lot to learn from. I don't need to necessarily agree with everything they have to say, but I can tell you I agree with 99% of it. Alright, let's talk compact versus commercial. So this is the ARBA proper prosing and evaluation poster. You can find it on the ARBA site, and if you look at the rabbit at the very bottom right here, that is a correctly posed commercial type rabbit. And if you look, they do have a bit of a shoulder that makes them look less ball-like, and that's because they have meat running along that shoulder up into the back. Now, if you go to the top of this page, this is a compact type. So this is what my mini Rex should look like. If you look, this rabbit has basically no shoulder. It is just a ball of fur. A problem we're seeing right now on the tables is people are taking commercial type rabbits and breeding them to compact specifications. They're losing that little bit of a shoulder. So again, we look here at the correctly posed commercial type. You see how they are a bit longer through that shoulder in comparison. And if you look up top here, how it says overly posed, how it doesn't look like it has that shoulder anymore, that's because people like to squish them up and make them lose that shoulder to make them appear more ball-like, giving them a false depth. It's not much of a difference, but it's enough of a difference to where you're losing out on that shoulder and the amount of meat that would be there, hence why the commercial types want them to have that longer shoulder. I know it's a slight difference and it's a little bit confusing, but it is something to keep an eye on and to look at your next show. Compact type rabbits should appear to have no shoulders, where commercial types do have some shoulder. So when it comes to vaccines, we don't have many of our buns that are vaccinated because getting the vaccines is either really difficult or really expensive. We have a clinic about once a year, and thankfully it's not too bad there. It's about $10 to $15 depending on the vet. But not all of my rabbits are vaccinated, just my show rabbits. But also understand we are very careful with our biosecurity. Our rabbits don't go on the ground. I'm very careful in watching where the latest outbreaks are. I have shoes that I don't wear off the property. And if I'm in an area that I know has an RHVD2 outbreak, I will change my clothes as well, just in case. Unfortunately, because of how expensive the vaccines can be, or because of how hard they are to get, your best bet for avoiding these illnesses is mitigation. And if you're interested, I can do an entire series on how we mitigate each and every health problem that we have in the barn or that a rabbit can get. So great question, but no, we don't rehome them. They are a part of our way of life. We eat them. I raise 5 different breeds of rabbit here on the homestead, and 4 of those are specifically meat breed type rabbits. The ones you saw in that video were actually Californians, which are commercial meat rabbits. They are specifically bred to breed the largest litters that grow the fastest, meaning that we can get a yield for about 4 to 5 pounds of meat in 2 months. It's an extremely sustainable option, and in fact, most people can raise rabbits no matter their circumstance. When I got back into rabbits, I was actually living in an apartment and breeding them and raising them in my living room. So there's no need for rehoming and adding to the pet population that's already skyrocketing across America and causing an overflow of animals into shelters. Here we believe in breeding responsibly, which means culling out our stock when the need arises. After all, these are meat rabbits, and I am a homesteader. Sorry y'all, I've been MIA. We were watching the new Doctor Strange movie. But if you are looking for a responsible breeder with good bloodlines, there are a few things I can suggest. Of course, you can always search through the ARBA and find a breeder local to you with the breeds you are looking for. Before I continue, we're parked. Or you can go to your local shows and talk to people who are within the rabbit community. Trust me, if you go to a show and you start talking to people, you can get an idea of who breeds in your local area and who is responsible about it. The rabbit community is very small. So if you go to a show and you start talking to people, somebody is going to know a breeder that's reputable that is going to breed the breed that you want. I've met a few followers on here at local rabbit shows, and we've been able to talk to each other and help them find local connections. You could also look on Facebook or Craigslist, but that's more of a gamble. If you do something like that, I would highly suggest talking to other people within that Facebook group that you are in to verify that somebody else has bought from them or that they have personal references. That way you actually get what you're looking for. However you find your source, make sure that you are staying safe. So I've had people come up to me before and they get kind of confused as to why I line breed, which is a fancy term for inbreeding. And although I can sit here and talk about it all day, I'd rather show you. This is my little lynx kit. She is 8 weeks old, and her dad is also her granddad. So this kit is from line breeding. And if you look at 8 weeks old, she has a very short shoulder, a nice roundness to her, and a very perpendicular hind end to the table. Here is a rear view of her, and she is nearly a perfect ball. And remember, this kid is only 8 weeks old, so those little hip dips you see up top are going to fill out as she gets older, compared to the best buck in my barn at a year-old. Year-old, 8 weeks old. By line breeding and keeping the best characteristics, I know what to expect out of my kits. And I can tell at 8 weeks that little lynx is going to be amazing on the show table, give another month. And if done right, my lines are more predictable and don't have the genetic problems. But in order to keep it that way, I still have to heavily cull my lines. So when done properly, line breeding can lead to some great successes. So I'm very careful about calculating how much meat we need here on the homestead. So we never actually have too much. Plus we have a deep freeze, so we can just store extra meat in that. I also have, along with my family, 4 dogs and 4 cats. So that could definitely help to offset my extras, so to speak. With that being said, in a theoretical instance, let's say I did produce too much. I don't have a license to sell meat. And to be honest, I will probably never get a license to sell meat. But I do have friends, families, and neighbors that I could give the meat to. My mom has just asked me to lie to her and tell her it's chicken. Because every time she comes to visit me, she names the bunnies. She names the chickens too, so I don't really understand, but homesteading is about community. And I am definitely willing to share if I have more. Hey y'all, I figured today I'd show you how we make our shredded rabbit base. I'm going to take my entire carcass and put it in my Instapot with about 3 cups of water. Then I'm going to slice a jalapeno up. You can do more than 1 jalapeno, I'm just not good with spicy things. And I'm going to take an entire onion and slice it up while throwing it in there as well to help flavor our stock. I'm also going to take a whole lime, which I am going to squeeze, and then also put the rinds in to cook as well. This chipotle pepper marinade mix is amazing. I love it when we're doing an Instapot. And I'm just going to throw it in there with some pollo tomato cubes and some garlic. Okay, like a lot of garlic. But I'm going to turn on my pressure cooker and we are going to let this cook for about 30 minutes. If you let it cook for too long, the meat is going to get tough, so make sure you don't overcook it. Once it cooks for 30 minutes, I'm going to let the steam come out and just depressurize naturally, which takes about another 10 minutes. Once the rabbit is done cooking in your broth, it's actually pretty easy to take off the bones. And this broth is amazing for soups or to cook rice or anything else you want to use it for. Don't waste that because it's delicious. I'm going to pull my rabbit out of my Instapot and let it cool just a little bit so I can start shredding the meat off the bones. I also need a new pair of tongs because it was not gripping very well. I will say it is easier to take the meat off the bones with your fingers than a fork, but you know. Also, if your tiny human is screaming, go ahead and give her a piece of meat. She's a mooch, but we love her. So this is what the meat looks like freshly shredded off the bones. After this, you can do pretty much anything with it. Turn it into a sandwich, have it over rice. It is so good. But I bet you can guess what we made. And that is right, it is Taco Tuesday, so we made tacos. It's a family favorite here. We have tacos at least 2 times a week. But y'all go ahead and try this. It's so versatile, and I would love to hear what y'all think. So the comment this person is talking about was they said that rabbits are not meat, and I made a joke and I said, what are they made of? Clouds? Because I was being silly. And we got this little zinger. But for your main argument, I would like to ask, according to whom are we not supposed to eat flesh? Because if you're talking from a religious standpoint or a personal choice, that is perfect for you. Keep on doing what you're doing. But as personal preference for me, my family, and my religion, I'm allowed to eat meat. So if we're talking from a scholarly standpoint, what studies dictate that we as humans are not omnivorous? I would love those studies and to see what update there is. Because everything from our teeth to the enzyme in our gut dictates that we are omnivorous beings. Not to mention, when you look at a standpoint from human evolution, we saw a drastic amount of brain growth in the time period where we learned how to cook our foods at the time, which were mostly meat. So I would like the update to this, because our education, even as adults, never stops. Now, as for if somebody would want to eat my child, you should know I threaten my children on a daily basis that I will eat them like hamsters eat their young. Because sometimes my children are very annoying. With that said, do not conflate human existence with that of animals. Although we should respect an animal's existence, it is not at the same level that humans are that we know of. As far as we have found, our experience as humans is unique, in that we have a cognizant presence. And although some animals do have things like intelligence and what is hypothesized to be religion in the case of things like elephants, it is not proven that rabbits have these things, and therefore to put them on the same level as a human is conflation. But again, if you choose not to eat meat, that is completely fine. But to push that on other people maybe isn't the best choice. So currently on the homestead, we have the rabbits, the ducks, the chickens, the quail, and the guineas. I want to get a cow, like a little steer, right? Like a bottle baby you raise and then butcher out. But I keep getting told not right now. And of course we have the garden. And I could in theory produce every bit of meat that we eat here on the homestead. With that being said, my husband does like steak, so every once in a while he will go get beef from our local butcher. Which is why I keep trying to convince him that we need to raise a steer. But I digress. When it comes to our veggies and everything, we still have to get those from the store, but I am growing some. Our big crop this year is potatoes, turnips, and radishes, because we live in an area where it's very cold and hard to grow things. But we are working on being more sustainable on that as well. Our goal is to be about 90% self-sufficient within 5 years of being here. We are on year number 2. So I don't think we're honestly doing too bad right now. So up until recently I was working, now I'm staying at home running the farm and taking care of the kids. Because childcare is expensive. Like, we save more money me staying home than if I were to work to put the kids into daycare. But I sell enough animals here to where we can offset our feed cost, and that helps pay for that. But my husband does work. He's a trucker and we have our own transportation business. But that's only for now. He's talking about getting out of it here soon, and we'll just both stay at home running the farm. The good thing about homesteading is you don't need to be here 24/7 to take care of everything. You can have a job and still be sustainable. If I don't dawdle, it takes me 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes at night to take care of everything we have. This includes Strawberry, who has decided he is going to play with his bowl. Such a noisy sucker. And if we're not just looking at time, it doesn't actually cost that much to raise rabbits to be sustainable. For a family of 4, you could easily have 4 rabbits, that being 2 males and 2 females, and sustain yourself for most of your meat off of that. And in that case, a bag of feed will last you about a month, so you're looking at $20 a month to raise rabbits. Now, of course, as your operation gets bigger, or if you were to keep more rabbits, it would cost you more, but it's not an excessive amount, especially when you compare it to buying your meat at a grocery store. Homesteading can be for everyone, even in an urban setting. And every little bit counts, especially if you're growing a crop like potatoes. Potatoes are an awesome crop to grow. I would stay away from lower calorie option vegetables though if you have less amount of space to work with. But at one point in time I was raising rabbits in an apartment, so anyone can do something to be a little more sustainable.